Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to do a deep dive into the Restoration Magic School in Elder Scrolls Oblivion. So this is a little more complicated than alteration because there's so many effects. And also, we got to talk about the skill increases. So if I go to this increasing skills tab, we'll zoom in a bit. If I look at alteration, which I just talked about, every cast gives you 4 skill points. So even if you don't pick it as a major and you just pick magic specialization, this many casts get you from level 5 to 100. And that might look like a lot, but if you're using those shield spells as you're playing the game, it doesn't take that long. It really doesn't. And feather, if you're using 3 spells all the time, every time you rest, every time you fast travel, it just starts to level up. And honestly, you should pick it as a major skill. Just saying. But even if you don't, it'll still level pretty quickly. Restoration, on the other hand, this number is massive. It gives 0.6 experience per cast. It levels up very, very slowly. And it's pretty weak at low levels because the spells that you want to cast with it are expensive. It's expensive to heal. The only one that's not is probably Restore Fatigue. They say to create a custom Restore Fatigue. If you ever do this cheesy stuff where you spam a spell, make sure to make it an on-touch spell because they go faster. I would never be willing to do this for more than 5 minutes, maybe. And I think these spells cost 2 seconds to cast. So let me show you something. So what 2 seconds to cast would be 30 casts a minute. So if we do in our calculator 7664 divided by 30, that's how many casts we're doing a minute, divided by 60, you would have to stand there and cast a spell in Oblivion for over 4 hours to get it to max level. Don't do that. Not fun. Not the way you should play the game. The way to get restoration up is rescue Julius when you're doing the main quest. He'll give you 1 point. Save these 5 skill books. Oh, way to go. Restoration. How did I get to M? All right, restoration. There's 5 skill books. A lot of them are just in chapel halls. In the Coral, Skingrad, and Bravel chapel hall, they're just in there. In a chest, on a shelf, on a bookshelf in the north room with a dining table. It's a brown book. Wait till you're at least above 50. It's kind of nice to wait even later when you're above like 70 to get these. Obviously, this one you'll just randomly find. Just read books when you randomly find them. It's okay if you read these at a lower level. It's not the end of the world. It's 5 free skill boosts, so that will help. Then, this is the only skill, well, no, not the only skill. I recommend training this skill after you have Destruction maxed out. I think Destruction's so useful, unless if you're enchanting something with Destruction to get it up to 100, which I do, but most people don't. I would use a trainer for 70 and above. Now, the Master Trainer is, you just go to Kvatch. Not like the city that's been destroyed, but like the new, what do you call it? Their new refuge camp. There's a woman there. I should probably just quick tell you her name, the Master Trainer. Trainer, Restoration Training. Her name is, oh, come on, Olita. She's in the, there, hey, it gives you a picture of her. Let's zoom out a bit so you can see her. Are you kidding me? There's Olita. She's not in the chapel. What? She's in Kvatch. She's in the little, like, she's outside running around in the, Kvatch is destroyed. She's not in the chapel. Ridiculous. She is willing to heal you or train you after you save Kvatch. So as long as you actually go and save Kvatch, I do it every playthrough. She's willing to train you. So it's a very easy one to get. After you get to 70, you need to use her. If you make it a major skill, it's not a big deal. It's worth gaining the levels. If you don't make it a major skill, doesn't matter. After 70, you need a trainer. This is just takes so long to increase. Maybe those last few levels, you will do a little bit of this cheesy stuff, like for 100 times. Don't do this for more than 5 minutes. If you do this for more than 5 minutes, you're going to hate Oblivion. That should be your cap. 5 minutes, say, okay, I got a few skills up that I needed, but I don't want to hate this game. It's a really fun game. Don't play it that way. Okay, now getting to the actual meat of, let's go some of these. We don't need to talk about skill boosts anymore. Restoration is weak until you get it to high levels. So we'll start with Absorb. For all of these, Absorb attribute, they all have to be on touch, and they have a range. If people run away, it like breaks the link, and so you stop absorbing. I never use Absorb attribute. It's not worth it to me. It also seems to like work funny. I tried using like a Absorb speed weapon enchant before, and I never felt like I went any faster because it's not like every hit would make it stack up. These are expensive. Base cost is 0.95. It's expensive, but so they work. Absorb attribute works as drain and fortify at the same time. Drain, so it temporarily lowers your opponent's and temporarily raises yours. I think I would rather just have fortify. So this is 0.95. Fortify attribute costs 0.6, so it costs quite a bit less as its base cost. And we'll talk about base cost more later. And we'll talk about fortify attribute more later. And we'll close these. We'll just open them as we go. Absorb fatigue can be pretty cool, especially if you're doing a hand-to-hand build. But honestly, just use damage fatigue if you're doing a hand-to-hand build, because your fatigue doesn't matter that much if you're damaging their fatigue and knocking them down. So the thing about absorb is they always cost less. So this is a base cost of 6. Damage fatigue costs 4.4 and restore costs 2. So together they cost 6.4. So absorb always costs less than those two skills combined. So if you want to do damage fatigue and restore fatigue at the same time, it is better to make an absorb spell. Just know that they're limited to on touch, and you have to stay close to people. I almost never want to do those two effects at the same time, so I very rarely use any absorb, even absorb health or absorb magicka. If you're using an Atronach sign, absorb magicka can be pretty good. Wow, it's a lot of stuff, but you have to make sure that they have absorb magicka. So you can get 50 from a sigil stone, 50 absorb magicka per strike. Again, if they don't have magicka, it's not going to help you, so you have to do a fortify magicka. It says it right here. You use a custom spell. Fortify their magicka and then absorb magicka. I think it's not worth it. It's not terrible. It's just none of these I really ever use. Absorb skill, again, 2.1 base cost. Fortify skill, 0.6. 1/3 the cost. I don't need to drain their skills. Like, I don't want to drain their skills. I want to kill my enemies. I don't drain skills. It's just not something I do. I know some people, you can do some funky things with these. I just never do them, personally. So I don't really have much to say about absorb. Cure disease, cure paralysis, cure poison. Cure paralysis is just good as a potion. You can drink a potion while paralyzed. You can't cast a scroll. You cannot cast a spell. Cure poison, honestly, I never even know when I'm poisoned. I don't think it does any damage. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Let me know in the comments if you've ever been poisoned and it's actually done damage. Sure, use it, but I'm not using it. Cure disease is actually really good. And this is probably the main reason I like to pick restoration as a major skill. Even if it means I have all 3 willpower skills as a major skill, I don't efficiently level ever. Because getting this to 50 really quick is nice. And you're not going to get to 50 very quick if it's not a major skill because it levels so slowly. This would mean you don't need to carry around any ingredients or any, what are they? Right here. Clamfear claws, mandrake roots, root pulps, or shepherd's pie. You can just eat them raw. You don't need to make them into potions. So clamfears, if you're doing Oblivion Gates, you can just pick up 6 of those and just carry them around all the time. Each one weighs 2 pounds, which could be annoying. Mandrake roots are really light. If you ever find those, they look like that. Pick them up, hold on to them. Diseases can be annoying. I get it. I know when I was doing my race tier list, I just kind of poo-pooed on resist disease. I think it's just not that hard to handle. It's not that hard to get one of those ingredients or to get cure disease potions. And 90% of the diseases are really weak. It's not until late game, which you should have 50 restoration. Astral vapors come from dread zombies, which are like level, I don't even want to look. Level, come on, just tell me really quickly. I don't want to look. I don't want to do a deep dive into that, but they don't appear very early. You're not going to see a dread zombie. They hit for 38 and regenerate 5 health a second. You're not seeing those at a low level. Most of these are just drain a couple attributes. Drain strength, drain personality. This one's pretty hard. What does MR even mean? Oh, that's a plug-in. Drain fatigue kind of hurts. Drain strength 5, drain personality 10. Most of these don't really affect you too much. You don't have to leave a dungeon because you have drain sneak or you have drain int 5 or drain speed 5 or drain agility 5. The low level ones don't really hurt you. I get bone break fever all the time for whatever reason, and ataxia. Ataxia, every zombie gives me ataxia every time. It is not until you get to astral vapors and some of the more serious ones at high levels. At high levels, when you have 50 magicka, you buy this spell right here, Cure Disease, Journeyman, Cure Disease on Self. That totally eliminates the problem of disease, and that's from restoration, so that's really good. Oh, did I really just close restoration? Restoration effects. There we go. Okay. Next, that's kind of all we have for cure. So I went pretty quick for absorb and cure, but fortify is where the real power comes from restoration. Now, if you watched my last video or the one before it with the warrior, that is all happening because of fortify magicka, because of fortify fatigue, fortify attribute, fortify skill. Fortify health is pretty good too, though it's got a decently high base cost, 0.14. That's a little bit lower than fortify magicka, but I want to show you something with fortify magicka. Well, we'll start with attribute. So attribute, you can pick any of them, and you can fortify your attribute. That just temporarily increases it. If your skills are low, you can boost your luck. I don't ever boost my strength or agility. Like they say, weapon damage bonuses are capped at 100, which is true. Strength and agility barely increase your damage. If I've ever shown you the damage formula, it's very minor. You know, even in my warrior build, I was wearing the necromancer's amulet. Like, it drains my strength. I don't care. I think I used a spell to boost my strength back up to 97 because I don't even care about those last few points. It's such a minor difference, you will not notice. Do not worry about strength and agility for damage. In fact, luck, if your skills are not at 100, luck is a larger increase to your damage than strength. And I should probably show that for you. So let's get our spreadsheet. So let's say whatever I have 24 base damage, I have 70 of this and 70 of that, 100 of that, and we're doing normal damage. So I'm swinging for 16 a hit. If I fortify my strength 30 points, well, we'll say 20 points. So the math is easier for me for later. 20 points, I go from, look right here, 16 to 18. That's a 2 damage increase. That's for 20 points. If I fortify my luck 20 points, well, every 10 points of luck is 4 skill. So that's going to be 8 skill. So it's going to go to 78. I went up to 18. So 16, oh, I guess they went the same. 18.084. Basically the same. Luck is slightly more powerful at this point. If your blade is much lower, like for example, if I'm at 80 strength and 40 blade, that 20 strength is only going to go from 11 to 12. Where my 8 skill is going to go from 11 to 12.5, which isn't that big of a difference. Point is, luck, which is not a weapon damage attribute, is giving me slightly more damage per point of attribute. That's because the strength modifier is not very good. Luck also, if you don't know this, increases every other skill. So it's way better to fortify luck than strength. And honestly, you get strength to 100 pretty quickly just from leveling. That's enough talking about that. I don't ever fortify my luck either. I mean, sometimes I do when I'm goofing off, but not if I'm like trying to seriously be powerful. I think the best attribute to fortify is speed because it's fun to run fast. That's the only attribute I ever fortify. It's an expensive spell though, and so you don't really do that until max level. Oh, and I missed willpower. In my last video, I did this. So this was my magicka because I'd been fortifying my intelligence and my willpower so much. So I was getting 160 magicka per second. I just wanted to show you that after I cast that weakness, which fortified my willpower even more, and cast my attack, which fortified my willpower even more, I was getting 230 magicka per second. Totally insane numbers. And this is probably where we should talk about fortify attribute because we got to tie it into fortify magicka. Fortify magicka has a base cost of 0.15. When you get the magicka skill, the restoration skill to 100, this costs, for 1 second, this costs 4 mana. Oop, just kidding. This costs 1 mana when you have 100 skill. 1 mana for 100. So it's 1.089 per second. So I put that in this sheet here. The cost of gaining 100 magicka per second is 1.089. If I combine magicka and willpower, 100, it costs 5.455. So it's 5.5 mana per second. When you saw me casting my buffs, these are kind of my starting stats. You know, maybe I only start with 300. This is if I do willpower and magicka. Fortify willpower 100, fortify magicka 100. I'm wearing armor, so my numbers are going up by 95 each time. I gain 95 magicka, 95 willpower. Every time I do that, so the first time I do that, I'm gaining 10 more magicka per second. So it costs me 5.5. I'm gaining 10. So if I do it for 10 seconds that costs 55 magicka, I'm going to gain 100 back from that effect. So fortifying my willpower and my magicka is going to give me more magicka back than I'm putting into it. And if I cast 8 of those spells, by the end of it, I'm going to have 190 magicka per second. Each one after the first one gets more and more powerful. You know, I think my mage that I had was like this. I could get up to, if I was just doing willpower and magicka, I could get up to 281 magicka per second. I don't go that crazy because I like to do other things. I don't like to buff that much, and I like to have a ton of speed and a ton of athletics, and I don't want to have to open my menu to buff. But this is what it's capable of accomplishing with willpower. This is a one if I did just intellect, my mana per second would go up to 79. This is alternating between intellect and, if I start at 808 magicka, intellect and willpower, pretty comparable. Getting quite a bit of magicka per second. Point is, you can't do this until you get 100 restoration. So it's not really worth your time to be fortifying your magicka and fortifying your willpower, your intelligence, because they don't give you more magicka back per second until you get really high levels of restoration. In fact, those last levels make a big difference. So restoration cannot be this crazy powerful until you get to those highest levels. The last thing I'm going to talk about, fortify skill. I love to use fortify skill to fortify my destruction. I think it's incredible. It's so powerful. This is talking about fortify conjuration. Bad. You can get it from doomstones, like the Apprentice Doomstone. You can get it from your the Skeleton Key, the Night Mother's Blessing from the Whodunit quest. You can do the Origin of the Great Prince. There's lots of ways. You can get one of the stones. It should say what stones. Where are they? Most Doomstones. Okay, most Doomstones, like the Tower one, it's right by the waterfront. It gives you Fortify Armorer. Fortify skill is really easy to get. And I like to use Fortify skill to just do, so Fortify skill right here. I like to do, let's say, 100 acrobatics for 10 seconds. That costs 43. I can cast that. I can cast 5 different versions of those to gain 500 acrobatics and skip over Oblivion Gates. You kind of saw me do that a little bit in one of my videos. Fortify skill is really powerful for acrobatics. Restore stuff. Man, I think I need to make this into 2 parts because I hear a baby crying in the background and I don't want to edit this video. So I'm going to make this into 2 parts. Thanks for watching. I'll make the other one later. Oh no, my computer's frozen too. Disaster.